Hi everybody, this is Warwick. I'm the founder of Beware, and I'm here with Tanya from Self-Sufficient Homesteading and Gardening Tribe Leader. And we just wanted to invite you guys. Welcome to the live this morning. We just wanted to invite you guys in so that we can do some talks, ongoing talks on Fridays. Now we're going to be doing this ongoing, and you're welcome to join us every Friday if you like. And we are going to have a recording available so that people that can't make it at this time of the day in the week, because we're working and got stuff on, you're going to be able to pick up the recording later. But just before we carry on, we just again like to just say welcome and a couple of house rules. We're going to do a bit of a welcome, bit of a backstory this morning, tell you a little bit about ourselves for the next few minutes while other people are joining in. And then we're going to go on to talk about how we're going to structure things, answering questions. At the end of the talk.
Demo hierdie kant.
And if you guys can just mute yourselves for now until we get to the end where we have a few ask questions, then what we're going to do is either in the chat you can type a question through to us when we open that section up, or if you raise your hand, if you know how to do that with Zoom.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not excusing. I'm just going to move to another room.
And then we will come back to
I'll see you now.
The frequent asked questions section. Okay. So again, welcome everybody from the homesteading group, and welcome everybody from Beware side. If we can, hopefully you guys can all hear us. Not if you hear us. Like jam a little bit, wave. Guys, good. Okay, brilliant. Excellent. So yeah, we've a little bit of backstory. Okay, so I've been doing beekeeping for about for over a decade now. This is actually my sweet 16th this year. And I've loved it from the beginning. I got into beekeeping and I did a course, and I was involved with a Rotary project at the time. They asked me to do some R&D around some funding that they received at Rotary Club. And they said to me, do you want to do any of the projects? And I'm like, no, thank you. Because this was, as I say, quite a while ago. I was still studying at uni, at varsity and stuff. And eventually, I think the seed was sown with beekeeping. And I went on a bee course in order to sort of make decisions about whether it'd be good for their funding or not, whatever the case. And by the time that day was over, my mind was blown. And I couldn't stop talking about beekeeping for about 3 months, like incessantly. Okay, it came to the point where my partner at the time was like, please, give us a break. Anyway, so long story short, I started something at home in the garage, and I got a couple of websites, and I started teaching other people that wanted to learn about beekeeping. And then I started pollinating. I started bee removals. I was making honey, and long story short, started selling equipment and stuff like that as well out of my garage. And fast forward about 12 years, I got a shop, and we've opened that, and so on and so forth. And here we are now. How I found Tanya was that the two of us, I think, actually, on this side, it's like cross-pollination, when things like synchronicity and stuff happens, there's a synergy that ends up happening. Like, I was looking at ways of being able to talk to people and share the benefits of bees and how they can impact the produce and boost the harvesting, right, of those people's produce, like farmers and homesteaders. You guys are. And along came this group that I found on the side of my Facebook, which is Self-Sufficient Homesteading and Gardening. And boom, introduced myself to Tanya, and here we are. So if I can hand over to Tanya, that's a little bit of our backstory. Tanya, if you can go ahead, give us a bit of your story, how you got into the homesteading and being the leader of your tribe.
Good day, everyone. It's lovely to be here today with everyone. Emil, I see you there too. Welcome, and welcome to Warwick. Thank you for collaborating with me. Well, homesteading for me started. Homesteading started for me when I started having children. I see the life is much different, and there's more to life than just the city buzz and everything. And we started moving out to farms. And ever since, we have really worked hard to being self-sufficient. And being self-sufficient, we're talking in all ways: the gardening part, the livestock part, electricity, water, everything. So, and in this whole journey, gardening has been a huge part of it and getting good crops. And when Warwick came to me and said to me, listen, can we collaborate on this? This was the best idea. So yes, we want to share what we know with you, and we would like to get your inputs too, because I'm sure a lot of you sitting here have a lot of input you can give to. So we're looking forward to your questions and your suggestions, etc. Going forward.
Yeah, brilliant. So I think that the most important thing to kind of start off with is why did we collaborate? You know, what is the major benefits about bees and pollinators for homesteaders, right? And in a nutshell, basically, on a lot of the other talks that I've done and training that I've done, we you know, and the research that I've done, bees, for example, honeybees and other pollinators, but especially the honeybees themselves, can pollinate flowers and fruit trees and crops and stuff like that with an increase in yield or produce. Basically, at the end of the day, your harvest can increase from anywhere from about 10%, which is the low end of their contribution or their improvement and boost to your harvesting, all the way up to 300% if you've got avos. If you're growing an avo tree in your backyard, or 10 trees or whatever the case, you've got a small orchard or something like that, you can go from, for example, this is just a quick off the top of my head number, the results are such that you can go from 50 kilograms on a mature tree all the way up to 150 kilograms on the same tree, and you've done nothing else, no pesticides included in that, nothing else to boost anything around the harnessing or improvement of that produce, of the yield on that particular tree, which is phenomenal. No extra fertilizer required for that, etc., etc. So
and this is like the dream for homesteaders, because we don't have necessarily space for 100 trees.
Exactly.
We want 1 or 2 trees of each of the different fruits, and we want to have a good yield on that. So that's why bees are getting so important, and pollinators. Let's not forget the other pollinators.
Yeah, I mean, there's fruit. Fruit flies play a big role in that example of the avocado, Sonia, and everybody. So it's not just the bees. The fruit flies play the butterflies play a big role as well. The odd bird can do as well, but in this case, obviously, we can. The beauty about the synergy, the synergy of the honeybees that we've been talking about between Tanya and myself, for both our groups, is that the bees need help. There's a lot of movement. There's a big movement about save the bees, and not just save the bees, but save the pollinators actually. And if we can drive saving that that kind of movement around honeybees, it does multiple things for everybody, right? In the whole scheme of things. And what do I mean by that? Well, for example, whatever we can do to benefit the bees while we're doing what we would have done anyway, i.e. plant nice flowers, plant good crops, plant stuff that's self-sustainable for our own use, whatever we're doing for honeybees is going to benefit just as many of the other pollinators as well. So where we're lowering things like pesticides and herbicides and all those sort of things, if we're doing that anyways, it's going to
Warwick, tell me, for homesteaders, so would it benefit just to feed the bees, or would it be of a greater benefit to have a hive or 2 on your property?
Yeah, great question, Tanya. So I think at the end of the day, if we can, if we're talking about somebody, the typical sort of homestead has got a plot or a small holding, maybe they've got 2-3 acres or hectares, whatever the case is. Our ideal would be to try and keep at least 1 or 2 hives. Majority of our customers at Beware basically are hobbyists, and they got less than 5 hives, generally speaking. It's usually two hives. 2 hives are better than 1, because there is the unfortunate situation where bees can leave. They do have scon.
Warwick,
yeah.
Can we just maybe try and mute some of the screens, because I can see it's interfering? I think it's possibly, I don't want to pinpoint now, but I saw Mohammed's screen flashing just now. So I think if we can mute Mohammed for now.
Okay, let me.
Sorry, Mohammed.
That's okay. Yeah. All right, is that better?
Yes, definitely. There's a difference.
Okay.
Thanks, Octavia, for bringing that to our attention too.
All right, thanks. Yeah, that's perfect. All right, great, guys. Yeah, look, I mean, this is just, not everybody's used Zoom before and so on and so forth. So it's all a learning curve for everybody, which is cool. we all roll with it, right? We plan. But look, so yeah, the idea is just to have at least 2 hives. The reason being is that, especially now during winter, which is something Tanya wanted to bring up, especially because because we've got the cold front right now. I'm having a lot of my beekeepers and my followers and customers and stuff saying, what do we do with our bees right now? It's a cold front. It's really bad winter. You know, how do we keep the bees alive? You know, because there's a very much a dearth period, like there will be with any of our crops right now, unless you're growing indoors and stuff like that, or under tunnels and things like that. So one of the ways you can, here's a top tip, if you've got any bees already, and maybe that should have been a question we could have asked as well, or let's answer now. I don't know how many people have got bees right now in the group. Oh, cool, there's one, Octavia, cool. I don't know who else, anybody else got bees, and you go through, oh, there's somebody who's actually wearing their bee suits as their picture. Excellent, I love that. That's Sharon. Welcome, Sharon. And we can't see too many other people. All right, cool. So
just a note, there's on your participants, there's a way to put up your hand. You can raise your hand, a little blue hand there. So if you want to answer the question that way, I saw somebody gave a thumbs up, which is also really good. So just cool. A way of participating on your participant tab at the bottom. There is a way to do it.
Awesome, thanks, Tanya, for that. Yeah. All right, so cool. Welcome to. Let's also just say a couple of other welcomes. See, there's some chat welcome. So welcome, Michelle from Longabarn, and and Nathan. Thanks for your comments. How's it, Andre? Welcome, guys, and Emil. So the reason why I say 2 hives better than 1 is simply just because that right now, when there's a dearth period, if we aren't feeding the bees, and how do we feed the bees? Well, there's a couple of ways. You can cut up fruit, excess fruit that you may have at this point in time, which can be a little bit, it's sort of, do you want it or do you want the bees to have it kind of thing? So you got to weigh that up for yourself. But cut up citrus fruit and leave that outside in the open, not near a hive, but outside away from a hive, and they will eat the glucose and sucrose and fructose off of that. But if you want to have a little bit more of a manual way of doing it, then sugar water is the best way to do it. So you take, it's a 2-to-1 ratio. So you're going to be able to take, say, 2 liters of water and 1 kilogram of sugar. You boil the water, mix the 2 of them together, and then add just a teaspoon of vinegar. And that solution won't ferment. The reason why we put vinegar in there is so that the solution doesn't ferment. And then basically you can feed it to the bees. Either if you have bee hives already, you're going to use an entrance feeder, which literally allows the bees, the bottle sits there at the entrance, allows the bees to feed from the inside of the hive. Or for anybody else that wants to do this, who doesn't have bees, but there are bees in your area, then you can take a feeding station, put that solution into a feeding station, which is like a bowl, either full of stones or pebbles or marbles, for example. And the reason why we do that is so that the bees don't fall in. And if they do fall in, they can climb out. And then obviously don't let it freeze. Only put it out after 10 a.m. in the morning, so it doesn't have a chance of freezing. Bees will come and collect that and then go back home at the end of the day. Yeah, cool. But Tanya, I wanted to just find out from you guys.
It's also important to mention, sorry, I'm not a beekeeper, I'm a homesteader, but the one thing I do know for the people that are not beekeepers here, the reason why you either put it internally in the hive or far away from the hive is because of the robbers. That's what I heard.
That's right.
Confirm that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Not robbers as in 2-legged robbers, which can happen, or 4-legged ones, which are done by the honey badgers. But yeah, because bees actually, when there is a dearth period, they are much like us. They can potentially like us or any other kind of mammal. They're going to try and find food from somewhere, and if somebody else has got food, then or some other animal has food or excess food, they're going to try and grab it, and that does happen. That happens with with bees, especially when there's a weak colony next to or close by to a strong colony. The strong colony can take advantage of the weak colony and go rob them of their resources. So yeah, avoid feeding right at the hive if it's an open thing. Don't an open container, whatever the case is. Rather put it further away at somewhere neutral. But good question. Thanks for that, Tony. Yeah. So, but tell me, what do you guys, in terms of homesteading, self-sufficient, and gardening? You guys, what sort of, what are you guys going to be planting soon? And what do you guys plant more of in terms of like veggies and fruits and stuff like that? What would you guys say? What in your experience with everybody, with your tribe?
Well, people can put in the notes there what they are planting and wanting to plant. But for us,
Yeah.
this season coming, we want to plant 35 different varieties of tomatoes.
Awesome.
Yes, we're looking forward to that. A lot of the seeds we got from many places through trades, etc. So we will be planting a lot of tomatoes in a smaller space, and obviously we go for the squash and the pumpkins, and we want some root vegetables too. And what is there? Oh, peppers and chilies. There's a lot of people that like chilies. I think, Emil, are you the one that like chilies, or was it Gavin? Yes, Emil. All right. So we try and plant a lot of variety. So everything that we have on the farm, we can eat. So we want to buy as little as possible from the shops.
Perfect.
So yes. But also now in winter, you've spoken about the feed and everything, and I know we're moving towards spring, but till we get to spring, for next year, for instance, what can we plant in winter to feed the bees?
To benefit the pollinators, and the bees. Okay, so ideally aloes, if you're in the Highveld area, the aloes are perfect right now. Okay, the aloe daviana is like the absolute powerhouse for the bees and pollinators over this period coming now. They're pretty much going to flower in the next 2 weeks. And in fact, it's such a stimulant that it's a lot like steroids, right? Because the bees become a hell of a aggressive, and they actually don't want to go near them. If you have any bees, if anybody's got any bees and you're in the Highveld area with aloe daviana flowering in the next 2 weeks, I would leave them alone, because it's a level 5. So we grade the kind of pollen and nectar, because nectar is what the bees make. We turn that into honey, and the pollen is actually their protein source. So think meat, our meat and our protein source. That's the pollen, and then the nectar is the carbs. And aloe daviana is a 5 for pollen on the scale. Think Richter scale, or in this case, it's nectar and pollen scale. It's a 5 for nectar and a 5 for pollen. It's the best indigenous local plant, but obviously we're not planting that for food and stuff. So what can we plant? There's not a hell of a lot.
One moment. Marian Esterhuizen, can we ask you just to mute your mic? Your bird is having a lovely song time there, but it is sorry. No problem. Just mute it for us. We are all learning. It's to the left-hand corner of your left bottom corner of your screen on your control bar. There's a place that says mute.
I've mute. Okay.
Thank you.
She's
okay,
muted.
sorry for interrupting you. Carry on.
Well spotted. No problem. In terms of, so if I'm not mistaken, right now, in fact, I actually know, for example, I consulted on a blueberry farm. I think they're the 3rd biggest one in South Africa, based down near East London. They were the 3rd biggest one when I consulted on them about 3 years ago, about pollinating their blueberries for export. And they had varietals that flowered all the way from May, our winter essentially, flowered from May, in fact, almost the end of April, all the way through to about January, which is phenomenal, because that is quite exceptional to have a crop that's over a winter crop in South Africa. It's not typical. But they were growing under tunnels, and they had a whole varietal, set of varietals that would flower sort of every 5 weeks or so, which I thought was amazing. So blueberries could be one. If you're growing under tunnels, blueberries would be good, really good. And the blueberries, interestingly enough, Tanya, get not only do they get more blueberries on a tree or on the bush, but they also get a bigger blueberry, right? So the fruit set's larger, and they get more blueberries. So these guys worked it out. I mean, it was an added cost for them to have the pollination service provided. So the beekeeper benefited, but so did the farmers. But they worked it out, and it was a ridiculous excess, extra kind of produce harvested yield that they would have basically been having before. And their grade jumped 2 grades higher because of the size of the blueberries, which is amazing, So they got I don't know.
If that can happen for a blueberry farmer, what can it do for a homesteader?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
And I think something that we haven't really touched base on yet, which is what we were discussing, is like a real bonus, is that you get honey, guys. Right?
And
I mean,
wax.
and all the other byproducts, which is a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about, on these talks. Like we're going to do insights on talking about how you're doing with the tomatoes. We're going to find out. I think you mentioned something about asparagus when we had a couple of conversations. That came up as well. But the tomatoes, for example, are self-pollinating, right? But they can benefit again as well. They're one of those crops that can benefit from beekeeping, I should say, and having pollinators in the area. One, you get a better fruit set, so a larger tomato, and you're going to get more of them on per bush, which again means things like jarring, making conserves, making pestos, and no, not pestos. Is tomatoes and pestos? Yeah, I think they're kind of ish. You make a sauce. Yeah, cool.
Another thing, guys, this is like just the introductory talk, and we're just finding our feet all and learning how to do the housekeeping, etc. But in the future talks, we are going to launch some new things, and not just that, we're going to teach you how to, for instance, make creams out of facial creams and body creams out of your beeswax, etc. So we're going to share some skills with you in the future as well. So you must just stay tuned for all of that, and just bear with us for the first one, so we get to know how this whole Zoom system works. So yes.
Yeah. So I think I mean, one of the things that I'll show you guys quickly, just as a little taste tester. I mean, those two demijohns over there, that's my recent batch of honey mead that I'm making. So takes a bit of time, but it's kind of like a labor of love, and that's honey and mineral water and a couple of other ingredients and stuff. So it's one of the byproducts we're going to be highlighting and talking about during these Zoom talks when we go on a Friday. But I think at the end of the day, I'm really excited about how bees can benefit all the homesteaders, and how the homesteaders can benefit from the bees. And we can get honey, loads of products you can make out of honey, cough syrups for the winter. So planting for spring, I would say, because that's coming up. And anybody that wants to start in bees, probably in the next, I would say the season effectively starts in August. What's going to happen is that a lot of bees, and I think a couple of people have already alluded to this, is that because there's a dearth period, because there's a winter right now, and that means there's not a lot of food for bees and other pollinators for that matter. What's going to happen with the bees, though, is that they do exactly what I was talking about earlier on. They abscond. So or track. So what happens is that because they might not be food where they are situated now, or have been situated, and they've run out of food where they were, they leave, they pack up and they move. Okay, and that's
what happened to us.
Exactly.
Our bees left.
That's exactly
they were there. Yeah. And I don't know anything about beekeeping. I was just lifting the hive every day, checking the bees, and I'm not supposed to even do that here. Lifting up, checking the bees, and then when I saw again, they had left, but there was no food here. So it's definitely something we have to look at. Yeah. But Warwick, there's Nathan Maingard says he wants to ask a question. Is it possible we can give him an opportunity?
Yeah, sure. I think, let me just find his, there he is. Is it? No, that's not.
Nathan
Maingard. Hold on a sec. Just seeing if I can find. I don't see him on.
Nathan, are you still on? If you're still on, just raise your hand on the chat.
So some of the other things that so rosemary is really good, okay? Rosemary is like, it grows all year round. If it's flowering all year round, then the bees are going to benefit from that immensely. And so can we, because it's quite good for winter, for any time of the year, for your immune system as a booster, and really good for the winter time when you're cooking stews and roasts and stuff like that. You're going to, cut a bunch of rosemary, throw it in the roast or in the stew. And it really has a good booster in terms of that. Have we still got, is Nathan there still, or?
I don't see him, but Gavin's got a question too. Gavin, if you can unmute yourself. I have 2 empty hives in Neisner. Is it advisable to place them in the forest to catch a swarm or leave them near the flowers of the fynbos?
Yeah, hi guys. Thank you
I'm
for
gonna
your
put you on video, dude. Gavin, hopefully
my
not in PJs or something.
yeah. Unfortunately, I live in the sticks, so my internet's not very strong. Yeah, guys, I came back down from Joburg 6 months ago, and I had to get rid of my bees up there, as you know, and I'm now sitting minus my Joburg bees in Capensa area. And I just want to know the best way to try and get the bees back in there. They are in my property. I've got quite a big, 1,000 square meters, and I'd like to get some bees back.
Okay, so you don't have bees right now. Is that what's going on?
Yeah,
You want to bring in some new ones.
Yeah, I had to get rid of them in Joburg because you can't, combine.
You can't transport them. Yeah. So good point, Gavin. Actually, and I mean, as and when we would have talked about this during our during our Zoom talks, we would have brought this up over time. But thanks for that. That's a great question. It's a big highlight of something that has become quite a contentious issue in South Africa. We're the only place on the planet that actually has 2 indigenous species in it, where one is actually the pest to any other, to its cousin, if you like, to the other species or subspecies of bee. So what Gavin's referring to is that in the southern part of South Africa, more or less along the escarpment, up to about Bloemfontein area, or just below Bloemfontein, or I would say Orange Free State area, bottom of the the old Transkei Ciskei area, there is one subspecies called the Capensis. I don't want to get too technical about this, but it is a darker, smaller bee. And then on the upside of the northern side of that border, what used to be a border there, is the Scutellata, which is the hive, otherwise known as the hive-felt bee. Both are honeybees. Both do exactly what all the other bees, the other sort of types of honeybees around the world. There's about 40 different honeybee species in the world, bees that create honey. Okay, and we've got 2 of them here in indigenous South Africa. But the Capensis one, or otherwise known as the Cape bee, is the only one that actually the worker bee can lay eggs that come out as females. All the other honeybees can lay eggs. The workers can lay eggs. They're just suppressed by the queen in all situations. However, if they ever do lay eggs, they will only become male eggs or drones. So it's quite phenomenal that that's been a genetic change and it's very unique. It is unique. It's the only one of its kind in the world that can do that. And why am I saying this is that there was a ban. There was a legal sort of stipulation that people weren't allowed to take the Cape bee into the half-felt bees area for that exact reason. Is that the moment anyone did that, it would have introduced the Cape bee as a pest into the half-felt bees area. And this created a massive issue back in the late 90s, where thousands and thousands of colonies had to be destroyed because the Cape bee, somebody transported a bunch of their Cape colony bees up through the escarpment over into the northwest for pollination and for honey production, without realizing and without knowing or being aware that there would be this issue that some of the queens and the swarms would have trekked away, and they did. And after doing that, they introduced them inadvertently, I'm hoping, introduced them into the half-felt area, into the northern area, the no-go zone for that Cape bee. And now they've spread across. They actually have spread all the way up to. They are being found in Gauteng, Limpopo, etc. And our Department of Health and Agriculture, Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries has declared it a legal requirement for us as beekeepers to destroy any colonies that have any of the Cape bee present in it, unfortunately. So we do need to be very careful of that. If you guys are moving from one farm to another, please just double check on your bees that you're able to do that, like Gavin did. He alluded in the beginning with his question that if he moved from Joburg, Gauteng down to the Eastern Cape, I think it was, if I remember correctly, he couldn't take his bees with him, even if he wanted to put them on the back of the trailer and trek with them down there.
Okay, fine. Yeah, sorry.
So how to get your bees back, or how to get more bees at the moment into your homesteading? Okay, well, find a local bee retailer. Like we're in Centurion, so you can come through to us and get a couple of catch boxes. I wouldn't get hives per se or brood boxes, which is the bigger box. I'll get the smaller boxes because bees prefer about a 35 square centimeter area or space or volume when they're small. So giving them a bigger space to manage in the beginning is not a good idea. Give them a small space, and what I mean by that is get yourself some catch boxes, ideally secondhand ones, because they smell like home and they're full of wax, propolis, all the good things that home would smell like. So like, think of it when you're wanting to buy a property. If you're an estate agent, you're going to make sure that cookies are cooking in the kitchen when you're trying to sell the house, and you have an open house. You want to have an open house for the bees, and the best way to do that is to use an old house. Okay. Second to that would be to use lemongrass. If you use essential oil, lemongrass essential oil available from us in Centurion. You can also get it from most pharmacies and anywhere that they're selling essential oils. Discam, for example, and then use 4 or 5 drops at the back of the catch box, and place them higher than 1.5 meters. And the reason being is that the stronger colonies prefer a higher spot to move into. Okay, so on the top of a roof of the garage would be ideal in the beginning. You would want to move them after that. Alternatively, in a tree, you can build a little platform in a tree, and make sure you tie the catch box onto that. If you don't have a lot of space, then, as I say, there are bylaws. You have to be careful of those. The ones in Johannesburg Metropolitan is 5 meters away from the boundary wall, 20 meters from any animal or human dwelling, for example. But right now, guys, you're probably not going to get too many colonies moving around because it's so cold. They won't take the chance. They're not going to risk it because they could just die. They could starve. Okay, there's not enough food. But in the next 3 weeks or so, after this cold front dies off and the temperatures start changing and climbing up, there's a very good chance that you should be ready by then with the catch boxes. I would say, again, 2 catch boxes. Always do it in 2s or more. Give the bees an opportunity then of choosing which home they prefer to start off with. And it also gives you the opportunity of at least having 2 colonies. So if one absconds and moves off, you've still got the other one there that's pollinating in your area and producing. Okay. Hopefully that's answered your question, Gavin.
Thank you. Most appreciated.
Pleasure. That was a great question. Yeah, Tanya. So, I mean, in terms of from you guys, when you guys are talking about homesteading and stuff, what do you guys do? What do you guys plan to do with your tomatoes, for example?
Well, it's basically
that's a lot of bushes.
That is, it's curiosity kills the cat. We want to see how many we can get growing, and we're just really excited about the different varieties that they are. So, and things are making a comeback. Things that normally 100 of years ago were all common. It all just the industry just took like the most beautiful round red one and just went ahead with that. So with the carrots, etc. as well. And I see a big trend within the homesteaders that they are bringing back all the old ways and bringing all the old seeds and starting to be what's the word? Preservers of seed, and to preserve all these varieties for future generations, and it's part of it. So we want to just keep these seeds safe, and we know there's huge seed banks. I saw a documentary the other day of a seed bank that stores 4,600 different varieties of potato. I didn't even know there was more than 10. And other seed banks store different seeds like their tomato seeds. So we know about them, but they're not accessible to us as normal people. And within the homesteading community, there's a big sharing spirit, and we share our seeds, and that way we preserve them. So that's a big factor.
That's brilliant. So do you run that? So are you running something like that through your group, through the tribe?
We do have paid for seed shares. We had it was so well in place before lockdown. Then lockdown came and just messed everything up because we couldn't post and everything. So we must get back on track. But we do have like if anybody has excess seeds, they can post either a pay it forward seed share, or they can do a seed swap. And
awesome.
That's really nice. I'm doing a seed swap now. In next week, I am swapping yams for yacons. I don't know if you guys know yacons.
What is a yacon?
A yacon is a type of potato, and you even make you can make a sweetener of it, a yacon syrup, and it doesn't contain a lot of sugar, but it's sweet. So all these things, nobody knows what it is anymore. I mean, who's growing yams? I don't think anybody here is growing yams except me. So and there's all these lovely varieties of vegetables and root crops, etc., and they've been lost in translation. And we are all slowly bringing them back and sharing them. So on the group, definitely there is a sharing spirit. Everybody wants to preserve and share everything.
That's great, man. And I think it's one of the reasons why I was really wanting to kind of get in touch with you and see if we can collaborate on something, like we're doing right now. This is a trial run for us. We were like, how do we combine the, how do we cross-pollinate basically our two worlds, because there is a synergy anyway in nature of how these things work.
Absolutely.
We don't have to tell the pollinators to do the stuff. They just make it happen, and the bees do, and the flowers do the same thing,
And we need to empower them. I think in today's life, everything has been so ruined, and so by pesticides and by modern agriculture, and we have to be like I was looking for this word with
the guardians of the gardening self-sufficient galaxy. This is it.
Yes, there we go. We have to be that for the bees, and we have to be that for our seeds, and to preserve that for the future. Otherwise, there will be nothing left if we keep going at the rate that we are going. So homesteaders, I think, play a huge role in this.
Yeah, I agree with that, and the thing is like, I've been, over the years, I've watched a lot of the like Rotten, for example, on Netflix. If you guys can get or YouTube, there's a bunch of these shows where they talk about the food production and what's happening with all these documentaries, and some really award-winning documentaries about GMOs and stuff like that. And I mean, there's some countries where the companies are going into where they literally won't sell any other seeds, and they actually even sue farmers who are trying to farm without GMOs.
Yes.
And the problem is that the farmer who's on this side, who's using GMOs, getting great yield, better yield, all that sort of stuff, farming and doing his thing next to the farmer that's not. The problem is that even the farmer that's choosing not to grow GMOs, which I'm sure a lot of your tribe is aware of, and we've discussed this too, you and I, a little bit, the pollen still transfers from the GMO to the non-GMO. It can't be helped. The farms are next to each other. One person doesn't want to grow GMOs. The pollen moves over and it pollinates the non-GMO, crop or flowers or whatever the case is.
Now that brings me to a question.
Go for it.
In this case, where you say it does cross-pollinate between the GMOs and the non-GMOs, would it then not be of so much more a benefit if you fed your bees on your homestead and you kept them there? Is it possible to keep your bees on your homestead so they don't want to forage in other farms?
That's an amazing question, right? Because it would be important for any homesteaders and self-sufficient gardeners and that to keep this in mind, that if they are in an area where somebody is not growing, they're not growing more organic stuff, that the bees, a small colony of bees, the distance that they're going to travel is around 700 meters squared radius, right? Sorry, not squared, but 700 meter radius, right? 700, 750, that's their optimal. A larger colony, one that's been built at least probably around for a season, is going to, its optimum sort of radius of travel is about 1.2 kilometers, so 1,250 meters radius. So you've got to bear that in mind. If you live next to somebody who is growing GMOs, the chances are bees will choose. Look, so here's another thing. Placement's quite important in terms of this.
Somebody actually mentioned that in the comments. Good. So,
okay, awesome.
Address that.
Yeah, great. Yeah, good. So another thing, not only is placement important away from walls and things like that, but the municipal kind of bylaws, which everybody should do their own checking. Some don't even bother with bees. Johannesburg Metropolitan has really specific stuff, for example. Cape Town, as far as I know, doesn't have any. But you know, you need to please do your own diligence on that. But another point is that in terms of distances, I would, you know, when you're working your bees, you know, South African bees are like the cousin to the killer bee. Okay, so you do need to have the right protection in your PPE. You know, you don't want to have the bees too close to your house or animals anywhere where the animals can't get away. So keep your bees away from bird cages, rabbit cages, chicken cages, hawkies, all that kind of thing. Everything that homesteaders are going to have. So placement around the animals and whatever where they can't get away, especially if you're working with your bees during the day, for example. They can be aggressive, and all they're doing is defending themselves. Okay, they're defending their resources and they're defending themselves. So ideally, you want to work at night with a red lamp on your hat, on your veil. And again, we sell this stuff at Beware, top, you know, highest quality, locally made in South Africa by us. So you know, if you want to get more information about that, you can go through the website and our Facebook page, etc. But I'd recommend you wear the right PPE and work at night. And here's the other thing, is that generally speaking, bees prefer to kind of be on the side of your crop, or on the side of a plantation, if you like, or a veggie patch, or whatever the case, not in the middle. And the reason being is that they do prefer to travel a little bit before they start harvesting and foraging, okay, for pollen and nectar. They do like a bit of a gap. The optimum distance away from a hive, so we talked about the radius that they'll travel and harvest and forage is about 750 for a small one, 1250 kilometers for a bigger one. But in terms of actually the most efficient, they'll, you know, so how far away from the hive do you travel, you know, to go to work every day? You know, well, a lot of people don't necessarily travel. If you're homesteading or self-sufficient, maybe you don't travel, but you do need to do work with your animals and so on. And so the bees are the same. So it's a good idea to place them at least 20 meters away from any animal or human shelter, as I mentioned earlier on, whether or not that's a municipal bylaw. That's a good idea. And working with the bees at night is a great idea to avoid any animals being stung, and in that process. And then thirdly, they prefer to kind of work, you know, about 50 meters away from the hive. From 50 meters away from the hive, that zone is kind of like not that they're not going to forage or collect pollen and do their pollination stuff, but they do prefer to have a bit of a gap between them and the hive. I would say at least about 50 meters if possible would be ideal. It's not everybody's, you know, not everybody's able to do that, but yeah, it's a good question.
Okay, there was another question, Warwick. There's two. Just want to address three things. I firstly want to thank the people that are answering the questions on the thread about the bylaws and moving, because there was questions and somebody jumped in and answered. Thank you very much. Secondly, Kevin, I'll get to your question in a moment. Rainier asked a question that's directly related to the last question. Is there an optimum direction to face the entrance, for example, facing northeast? So we can address that quickly, and then I want to get back to Kevin's question.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so optimum direction to face the entrance, in my experience, is first and foremost would be the sunrise. And ideally, the bees, you know, the hive should be in semi shade to sunny, depending on where you are in the country. You know, if it's sort of subtropical and you're on the coastline, then they probably would handle being better just in the sun, as long as it's not going sort of above 35 degrees on average. If it does get to that, then maybe some shade cloth would help. A temporary shade cloth would help them in the summer period, in the peak period in December. But you also need to be aware of if there's obstacles in the flight path, about a meter radius around the hive. You know, it's good for them to be able to get out of the hive and zoom up if they're that near an obstacle of some kind. They will fly around it. You don't want to have something right by the front of the hive that's obstructing them from good access to the hive, as well as when you decide to want to work with your bees, the same thing applies. You need space, okay? And you want to be able to create fire breakers over the winter. That's something else you should be doing now if you've got bees. It's creating fire breakers around your hives as well as around your properties and your smallholdings, which I'm sure people are tuned to do anyway at this point from the homesteading tribe. But it is important to do that for your bees too. And also it helps to keep the ants away and things, which is something else we're going to have to talk about on another day. Okay,
ants is a big issue, so we could make
pests.
it a
So it's ants for
subject.
homesteaders and for bees. So we're going to nail two things with one stone there. It's cool. The other thing is so sunrise facing, and then you need to consider the wind factor, okay, as well. If you've got a constant wind flow, you'd want to make it a bit easier. Like think of an airport, you know, when the planes are coming in, if there's a strong side wind as they're about to land, guess what happens? It makes it much more difficult for them. They get drift. Makes it much more difficult for the bees to actually do their thing, to come and go easier. Okay, so you need to kind of consider the hierarchy. There is going to be priority is sunrise facing, but secondary to that would be the wind factors. Okay, and then also placement of height as well is probably important. I would not don't place your hives on the ground. At least use some air bricks or something, or a tire is cool. Tire is actually probably quite good because it would likely keep the ants away. But you may introduce a couple of other things like snakes, you know, when it gets warm and stuff like that. So just be a little bit aware of that. Yeah, I think that's covered. That would probably be my most, and as I say, height is quite important. The higher the bees are, the easier it is for us to work as beekeepers with them, but it also keeps pests away. And if you've got honey badgers, guys, which is a big problem in South Africa, I love honey badgers, and Stoffel's one of my favorite animal characters. And so, you know, so you need, and they're bright. Okay, if you don't know who Stoffel is, look, YouTube Stoffel. Okay, he's an amazing character, and I just fell in love with honey badgers after I saw that. And over the years, thankfully, touch wood, I haven't had any experiences with honey badgers. A large portion of that is due to my planning and my strategy, which is raising my bees on platforms using pallets. With a single pole, it's been treated and buried in the ground, etc. Where I know that there's honey badgers going, you know, I don't have to do this everywhere because I know where there are honey badgers, and usually I know where they aren't. If it's an urban area, then I can exclude that. But when it's not an urban area, like you guys are going to be in small holdings and plots, raise the colony, raise the bees above 1.5 meters, and don't place it anywhere near a tree, for example. So semi-shade, away from any branches, overhanging branches. They're going to be able to carry the weight of the honey badger because they are smart. They're going to climb up the tree and jump onto the hive, and they're going to rip it apart. Okay, we don't want to exacerbate the idea of having to deal with a honey badger, because once they know that there's bees there, they're likely to return, and we don't want to. I personally always talk about being able to look after everything if you can, and that means that try and avoid, allowing or permitting a honey badger to actually get access to your hive and to your bees, and that way there's still a mutually beneficial kind of relationship. The honey badger can carry on doing its thing, and the bees can carry on doing its thing, and you happy from both perspectives. So
Okay.
Yeah, and Gavin's got a good point. He just mentioned there that, you know, make sure the poles are not treated, which is you know, it's a valid point. Okay. And obviously you're going to put them on. You can put 4 on a platform. That's what I do. I put 4 on a pallet. And interesting there, obviously the problem comes into play that your direction is not strictly what I was explaining earlier on, but the bees can handle it. You can also obviously put your platform so that the bees are all facing in the same direction. Obviously, you can't put 4 in a pallet facing the same direction, but if you build your own hive stand, we've got hive stands at the shop, for example, but you can build your own using old secondhand gates and poles and whatnot, or even just wood, you know, keep it simple.
Okay, great. Warwick, there was a question from Kevin Mitchell. I heard there was a move via a white paper to legislate seed banks. I suspect Monsanto was behind it, basically trying to make it illegal to keep and share seeds. Are you aware of anything like this, or whether hopefully this idea was squashed? Well, there's definitely moves against any seed preservation, or even I know states in America and in parts of New Zealand, they are telling the people that they can't garden their vegetables in their yards. So definitely there are moves to control food, but I'm not 100%, or I don't have first-hand knowledge of exactly that white paper that you are talking about, but I can believe that it's true, and I can believe Monsanto could be behind something like this, because obviously they do want control of the seeds. At this stage, thankfully, there's nothing prohibiting us in South Africa. I don't know where everybody else is from in South Africa to do this yet, so we're going to go big and just keep doing this. Yes. There was another thing Emil said. Emil, I live in Tilburg, where pesticides use is a massive problem. I can imagine that. Towns surrounded by wheat and canola and crop dusters are being used, devastating effect on insects and small animal life. And even in the Boland and all those places, the Hex, Rivier, Valley, I think all those places are suffering tremendously because of pesticides, etc. And is there anything really we can do about it? Because Warwick, I hear a lot about pollinators who are not even wanting to take their bees out anymore for pollination because the people are killing them with what they are spraying on their trees. So yes.
Yeah, what's scary as well, Tanya, about that is that, you know, some of those docies and the research I've done on the GMOs for my own use and for my followers on Facebook, my tribe basically, is and not too long ago we spoke about you know, heirloom seeds and you know, organic seeds, non-GMO seeds. You and I as well, and I've got it on some of my emails that I send out on my articles and things. Part of another issue really is that you don't even essentially they're building intellectual property into these seeds, and by doing that, by patenting these seeds, they want to protect their patent and their intellectual property. And in order to do that, they need to squash any free seeds and heirloom seeds available that don't have a patent on them, so that they can monopolize the entire food security production. Okay, which is crazy, but that's what is going on here in the background. Also, what's happening is that built into some of these GMOs is that the pollen itself and or the nectar is actually, the insecticide is built in.
So we consume it.
So we, not only do we consume it, but so do any pollinators.
That's
right?
Devastating.
So that's just, when I heard about that, it just blew my mind. So the European Union right now is they're battling against Monsanto and Bayer. And they won some cases here where they can actually ban glyphosate, for example, and a couple of other pesticides. And now, obviously, Monsanto and Bayer, who are now combined, by the way, they're now you've got not only do you have them as separate entities, you now have a combined entity of one that provides all the pesticides and fertilizer and all the horrible stuff that people think they need to grow their crops and things and our food. But they've also combined that with the people who provide the seeds right now, the majority of the seeds. So you're getting a massive, excuse the pun, cross-pollination of those two industries and those two companies who are billion-dollar industries, billion-dollar companies, monopolies really, becoming two heavyweights. And I think, geez, man, it's the consequences of that are going to be a little bit scary. But before we get to the end here, talking about seeds, I think we need to just highlight our project that we kind of came up with, right? And the questions as well, yeah. So, guys, something that's really awesome that's come out of this our collaboration and our cross-pollination together between Tanya and myself, and trying to see, you know, what benefit we can give you guys in talking about the benefit for you to have bees and homesteading and the byproducts and everything. That we came up with this. How do we get the seeds to the tribes who want to plant them, and then at the same time help the pollinators and the bees in order to make the synergy work, right? And I mean, Tanya, you know, we were talking about your son's business with the seeds last year. that he was busy doing. And yeah, we came up with this idea. Do you want me to go ahead, Danielle? You want to? Yeah, you sure? Okay, yeah. So really excited about this, man. I was like, we were talking about seeds, and we had about an hour conversation, right, about this, and we were like, how cool will this be if we can come up with an idea and a project while we're talking about all of this during our Zoom talks? We share the insights and the behind the scenes kind of stuff with you guys about this project, where we want to combine seeds for homesteaders, seed packs of food, of vegetables, and then fruit, and then flowers, edible flowers, right, in different little packs. That's kind of where we are at the moment, a big picture idea of where we are for this project right now, where we make that available to you guys as a product so that you can then either buy it, use it, plant it, give it away as gifts, whatever the case is, while you're looking at how to, benefit all the pollinators in your area. So, I mean,
Yes. This will be a focus to help the pollinators and the bees. And Warwick, I just want to say the seeds will be sourced from the best heirloom seed company in the country. So awesome. Can I say who it is? Can I say?
Go ahead. Yeah, I think let's do that.
Okay. Living Seeds will be our supplier of seeds. That's the planning. We are in the planning phase. We are busy speaking to Living Seeds at this stage. And a lot of you may know Living Seeds already. And when my son had his business, he runs heirloom seeds. He was basically a supplier of Living Seeds. And he started his little business when he was 10 years old. He had a website he put up. He managed that website for 2 years. He sold the business in December last year. None of us knew COVID will happen and that seeds demand will just quadruple, unfortunately. So we're thinking of, in any case, new ways to incorporate this, and this will be the way to cross-pollinate with Beware, and we're going to do some, can we say the name, bee bombs?
Yeah,
bee
well,
bombs
I don't know. We're gonna still call we're still playing around with some names, eh? But yeah, yes, bee bombs, seed bombs. I don't know, bee grenades, whatever. We're gonna call them.
So this is in the pipeline. We will keep you posted on that. But Emil had a question. Can we give him a chance, Warwick?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, Emil, you can unmute.
Yeah, I'm done. It's more a comment. I fortunately live right next to one of the big bee farmers in Tilbach. He was quite hard hit about 2-3 years ago, where he lost about 150 swarms due to Roundup use. And there's an ongoing court case and blah, blah, blah. On the seed front, I think it's going to be up to individuals like us to keep the seed alive, because even the biggest seed bank in the world in Svalbard, the main funder of that seed bank is Monsanto.
Exactly.
And everybody's going on about Monsanto, but there's a new technology being launched and already grown in the States called Liberty Link that Bayer designed. And apparently this makes Monsanto stuff look like small fry.
Child play, okay.
It's called Liberty Link. And there's also, if you can find it, there's a fantastic video on seed. It's called Seed, the Untold Story. It is shocking to see
the
untold story.
Seed, the Untold Story. And it's shocking to see how many seed varieties we've lost in the last 50, 60 years. And I'll say it again, it's going to be up to individuals like us to keep this thing going and to, I feel a bit like I'm a revolutionary every time I plant an heirloom seed.
You feel like a rebel.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, it's a bit scary actually, because I mean, the beauty about YouTube is that there's lots of stuff available there to, all sorts of things from A to Z that you can go watch. But it's also a bit scary sometimes watching some of these docus, because it's like, geez, some of the stuff that's going on behind the scenes that a lot of people don't know. And I mean, Tanya and I, in our respective camps and our respective tribes are probably abreast of a lot of this sort of stuff, and because we're having conversations with people. And this is why I think, actually, you know, I believe in a lot of synchronicity, and I think Tanya and I both spoke about this, that this collaboration was meant to be, excuse the pun, because of both our backstories and our background and the tribes that we kind of, you know, are involved in and working with and support and stuff in a lot of our day-to-day passion, you know, that we were able to highlight a lot of these things for people in a much better way, in a much broader spectrum, by being able to share this kind of Zoom talk and doing it on, you know, doing it through Facebook Live and doing it on YouTube or whatever the case is, and spreading the word really. And then using things like this platform, our respective tribes, and then, as I say, YouTube, but also in addition to that, looking at something like the seed bombs or the bee bombs, and actually getting a product out to people that's just going to hopefully, you know, explode the story about why we're doing that and tie it all back to our different tribes as well. So it's kind of like this massive collaboration on a scale where we're hoping it's going to just blossom, really, excuse the pun, you know, while we're able to tell the story of what's going on. You know, why is it so important, A, to have pollinators, B, to be able to do self-sustaining gardening and food production, and C, why is it important to do that with heirloom seeds, seeds that haven't been tampered with, haven't got, you know, pesticides built in, where you shouldn't be using Roundup, shouldn't be using glyphosate, all those things, you know, and the reasons why. You know, why is it so important? Because I think a lot of people don't have awareness.
Yes, and for us homesteaders, it's about health as well. We want optimum health. We have a totally different mindset, and we need these things. So yes.
Yeah, and I mean, again, you know, it's you know, we'll be looking at sharing on things like what's, you know, with your project, with your sort of project on the tomatoes. You know, we're going to be able to talk about that on an ongoing basis, as and when you guys, how you planting the stuff out, what's happening with the pests, what complementary plants you can plant with the tomatoes, for example, the difference maybe between if you know, we're going to talk about maybe you guys getting a beehive, Durant can maybe get involved there. I don't know, I'm signing him up for stuff. Or whatever.
Yes, definitely.
You know,
we're going to help each other to
build that. Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
No, it's like yeah, so great minds think alike. So yeah, it's all good. And then obviously on our side, we'll talk about, you know, we've got a couple of online things that we're doing at the moment from my side, which is like an online beginners course on how to start people in beekeeping, how to get bees, how to keep bees in a basic way, and what equipment you need, and avoiding mistakes that usually that beginners make. And a lot of some of that stuff we've talked about today. But I think there's also things like, you know, we could also put together a couple of courses online about how to make mead, for example, you know, and educate guys, give them some training and insights on that. And then the same thing goes with your tomatoes. You know, we're going to put together something along the lines of that if you're interested in that. And as and when this is a sort of, you know, this is kind of becoming it becomes a bit of an organic movement going forward about what you're focusing on your side with your tribe and in your personal capacity as well, and what you want to let us see with your experience, your insights, and your tips. And then I'll be doing the same thing from my side too. And then you can collab with questions and see what other people are doing, and see if there's a couple of other experts in their own area that we might want to bring in here.
Definitely.
And do a sort of guest invite and a guest webinar on that, you know, for example. So those are a lot of the things that we're looking at doing. Sonia?
Yes, no, that sounds perfect, and that's the things we can help each other with. And as the questions come through from everybody on the group, we can formulate more into a direction in which we are going. But we want this to be very interactive. We want this to be something that benefits everyone and that everyone actually enjoys, because one must enjoy what one does. So this is one of the things. And there was just one question that we can also address. I think we can make it, if there's no other questions, we can make that the last question.
One quick question. So what is that? Which one did you want to?
What is the impact of taking sweet potato from the shop, for example? She's talking about planting it specifically. Sweet potatoes and potatoes, it does have a big impact. To take from the shop, you run the risk of introducing diseases into your soil. And that's something I would never do. I don't even put sweet potato or potato peels in my compost, because the potato and sweet potato guys are really battle with pests and stuff and diseases in their soil, and they do use a lot of pesticides and poisons and whatever you want to call it to kill it off. But some does stay on the skin, so I wouldn't. I know people say, it's like people having 5 Staffordshire Bull Terriers on a property. They said, no, we've never had a problem, they don't fight. And the next thing you hear the next person say, I've only got 2, and they've just verskeerd, what's the English word? They've just, mauled each other. And it's like, there we go. And I'm like,
nice,
thinking, people, you can't give the advice of put 5 staffies on a property and you don't have the knowledge of the breed. So it's the same with potatoes and everything. It's really nice. There are people that have planted potatoes and sweet potatoes from the shop, and they haven't had problems, or maybe they just don't know what the problems they've created. It only comes through in the next season with the next crop they plant. So to buy sweet potatoes and potatoes from guys that have certified stock, that can tell you these things are disease free is your first prize. It's taking a huge risk to do it from the shop. That's my 5 cents on that.
And just from your perspective, Tanya, I mean, I know you said you guys are going to be planting your how many was it? It was like 26 different kinds of tomatoes. 35. Listen, almost 36. Like all gold tomato sauce.
Yes, different
right, cool.
colors, black, blue, purple,
I love it, man.
orange.
What blew my mind, right, was the when I first saw the real true color of carrots.
Exactly. And that's one of the things. People started taking the orange, and they just started taking the orange, and all the other colors disappeared, and suddenly we have all these colors back introduced or introduced back for us, and it's so much more variety. And I see people baking sourdough bread with black nebula carrots. Have you seen it, Emil? You've seen it, because Emil is a sourdough baker. And you take 1 carrot, you juice it, and you put it in your mixture for your sourdough, and you've got a purple bread.
Wow.
How awesome is that?
That sounds amazing.
With all those antioxidants and nutrients, yes.
Yeah, all built in. I mean, amazing, right? Yeah, just blew my mind when I saw that. I was like, what? And then it's just interesting because it's largely also down to what people perceived was what the market wanted, that they preferred to have more, bought more of the orange carrots. And therefore, 200 years later, we only know that orange carrots exist.
And everybody's mind was blown when purple carrots made.
It's like, oh, what have people done to that carrot to make it purple? And actually, hang on a second. What did they do to the purple carrot to make it orange?
Yes, absolutely.
And it's chicken before the egg kind of thing. But the same thing happens with honey. On the last note is that anything large portion of shop shelf bought honey is imported. Okay. Because there's a 2,000
and from China and all these places.
Exactly. There's a 2,000 ton shortfall of honey in South Africa, local production, which is one of the byproducts and biggest benefits that we all get as a homesteader and self-sufficient gardeners. Okay, is honey. And the one of the biggest problems is that the honey, that's a large portion of the honey that's bought on the shelf. There was not only was there a show on Carte Blanche on it a while back, but I mean, I've known this for ages and ages because it's part of my industry. It's a big problem for us. People are importing the stuff from China and elsewhere, and largely a lot of it is actually blended. First of all, it's blended, and second of all, it's fake honey. A lot of it is fake honey. And how do they do that? They take sugar water and syrup and mix it in with honey. And that's why one of the reasons why you only get this bland tasting honey, which people think is that's what honey is supposed to taste like. So it's a lot like the orange carrot. The purple carrot became the orange carrot, became the only carrot. And when we tell people you can get, like right now, you can get Cosmos honey. Cosmos, the flower? You can get a Cosmos honey, and people are like, how did you get the Cosmos taste into the honey? And I'm like, yeah, guys, no, it doesn't work that way, It's actually because the bees went and foraged on the Cosmos, and they went back to the hive, and they took the nectar and turned it into honey, and that's what it tastes like. It's going to have a little bit of the taste and the character and the flavor and the flavonoids and everything from that particular flower in the honey from that crop. And they were like, no, man, you're telling lies, you know. You've gone and put, I don't know where, if you can even get Cosmos flavor, you know, what you call that stuff, the baking stuff, you know, when you put the flavoring in, you can't get it, right? But people, that's what people's mindsets are like. So it's a bit crazy, because we go throughout the year where, like, now you could probably get blueberry honey if you can get hold of it. It'd be awesome. Raspberry honey, lavender honey, rosemary honey. The aloe honey is delicious.
Aloe honey is the best, yes.
Aloe is like, mwah. But the problem is that it hardens, like it crystallizes within days, okay? Which is nothing wrong with that, because that's when you kind of know that it's the natural, real thing. It's raw honey. It's its natural way of preserving itself. And believe it or not, because of the different constituents and the things that happen because of the different varieties that bees are foraging on, the plants that they're foraging on, they all have their own characters. So you can have anywhere from almost molasses color in raw honey, some raw honeys, through to an almost clear white translucent honey, okay, depending on where the bees are and what's in the area that they can forage on, right? And the taste is the same too. The taste variety is a massive spectrum. So and so is the granulation process. So sunflower granulates within about 2-3 weeks, but a lot of the blue gum will take a year. In fact, it won't granulate because most people have finished it before it can granulate. You know, but lychee, for example, is phenomenal. It's one of my favorites. And believe it or not, watermelon honey is to die for.
We need to plant watermelons.
So plant some watermelons, okay, guys?
Yes. There's one last question. We're going to make it the last for this one.
Then we got
Michelle. Yeah, then we need to wrap up. Michelle asked if sugar water if there's any alternatives to sugar water. She just feels wrong. So is there anything else you can feed the bees?
The only other thing really is the actual citrus. So if you take the citrus, you can chop pieces of orange, lemon, anything with fructose really would be better than the sugar water. But it is literally, you know, it is limited. It's limited.
Do you know what I saw the other day, Warwick? Somebody sent me a video. They put moringa powder in close to the hive, and the bees were picking that up. I'm like, can you explain that?
I can quickly.
Sorry, that was the last question.
No, that's cool. That's a good question. That's largely going to be a protein source, I reckon.
Okay.
So they're going to take that as a pollen substitute, which is also something that you could feed the bees too. But they ideally need a mix of both. But the main thing to survive, actually to not starve right now, is the carbs, which is is some kind of sucrose, glucose, and fructose kind of mix. So the traditional thing is the sugar water, a 2-to-1 ratio. Alternative to that would be things like, as I say, cutting up fruit, any kind of citrus fruit. So your oranges, lemons, limes, possibly grapefruit, that kind of thing, and then leaving them open out in the backyard sort of thing, away from any animals and pets and things like that, obviously. And then something interesting I'd also see Michelle's has mentioned as well is the thyme honey.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Octavia just raised her hand. Octavia,
go for it.
You need to unmute.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to check with you. There's somebody that sells pollen patties in Cape Town.
Yeah.
Are we running a risk if we buy it in another province?
Wow.
No. We have a pollen substitute at the shop as well, where you can feed the bees with that as well. It's specifically designed in South Africa for our bees and for the correct ratio of pollen to other ingredients. But you can make your own. It's not that difficult. There are a couple of recipes online. Largely like mealie meal can be used. A lot of bird feeders, actually, a lot of bird seed, a lot of that stuff is actually visited by bees simply because it's also got pollen. It's got leftover pollen residue sort of in there. And I don't know if you guys have experienced that, but a lot of my tribe people are like, oh, we've got bird feeders as well, and the bees aren't that why. It's because of the pollen substitute. So you can buy pollen patties, but I'd want to find out like how kind of organic, you want to be careful that it's not stuff that's been derived from a GMO if you can help it. And sometimes it's not possible to help it, but ideally that's my answer. You can buy it from another province. That's not going to be an issue. We ship all over the country, but what I would want to know is, the source of that pollen substitute, the patty itself or the powder. But yeah,
very good point. Thanks for the question, Octavia.
Yeah, it is a great question. Well done. Thanks for that. And hopefully, yeah. So millie meal, again, as I say, yeah, Michelle, the problem is that it is GMO. So you need to get the organic stuff.
You need to plant it on your homestead.
Exactly,
you
yeah.
Purple, red, black, and blue corn. And
that's it.
On your
That's
homestead.
exactly
there
it.
You go.
That's exactly done, yeah. Perfect.
And then you get grey pup and pink pup. Did you know that? You get different colors, millie meal, or like pup when you make it if you use it. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
lots of fun to be a
So
homesteader.
try and get hold of the organic version of the stuff we've mentioned today, where possible. Make it yourself. There's a fairly basic recipe of you can use millie meal or other form of protein based powders, and then make a small patty. But remember, they don't need a lot of protein during the winter. That's why most of the time we don't talk about protein feeding.
Okay.
It's simply because protein is largely used in creating the baby bees, nursing the bees, nursing new bees. And the natural instinct of bees is not to create too many. The queen goes from laying 1,500 to 2,000 eggs a day in the spring and the summer periods, drops all the way down to about only 300 a day, up to 300, 200 to 300 a day in the winter periods, simply because they become more dormant and a lot less active. So what happens is you have this natural contraction because of the increased use of resources during the winter, because of them having to keep warm and live and survive on lower resources available. So they contract in the winter, and then come the spring, come the beginning of August rather, there's this massive outburst of her starting to lay like crazy. She starts the beginning of August, she starts laying 1,000, 1,500 eggs a day. So that come about 17, 18 days, they start being born every day. So you can imagine, in a very short space of time, come springtime, the colony is ready to hit all the blooming blossoms that's going to happen, in all of our gardens and everywhere.
Okay.
Great, guys.
Okay.
Thanks,
Okay,
Tana,
I want to
for
ask.
awesome session.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Guys, I want to ask if you've got questions and things you want us to address in future sessions, that you can either contact us either through Beware on Facebook or Self-Sufficient Homesteading and Gardening. You can send us some messages and post us some questions, and we can address it on a group chat like this. I really think this was good, and that it will only get better from here. And thank you for everybody that was on here. I see some have already exited. The ones that are still here, thank you very much, guys. Thank you, Warwick. Really appreciate it.
No, it's a pleasure, and I really look forward to working with you guys, with you, Tanya, as well. And let's spread the love and save the bees, and let's feed the nation.
Absolutely.
All right, guys.
All right.
Yeah. And we're gonna post the recording or replay of this on Facebook. Okay. So if you guys do want to watch or refer back to anything, it's going to be available probably later on this afternoon. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks, Tanya. Ciao. Bye.
Bye.